Good evening. Before we get started tonight, I want to welcome Reverend Bob Wood from St. Aidan's Episcopal Church in Alpharetta to come up and lead us in our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor and City Councilman. Let us pray. Lord God and Father of all, in our prayers for this country, this state, this county, and especially the city of Milton, we remember especially the men and the women who influence this life in this county, those who sit before you fashioning our politics and framing and administering our laws, those in this room who mold public opinion through the press, radio, and television, those who write and report that others may read and be informed. May all such as these recognize their responsibility to you, to this nation, and to the city, that people everywhere, young and old, rich and poor, may be influenced by what is good and what is true to the glory of your most holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Wood. Okay, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, August 20th, 2012 to order. Will the city clerk please call roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the August 20th, 2012 regular meeting. However, I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Additionally, those attending the meeting who would like to provide public comment either during the public hearing or during the call for public comment, you're required to complete a public comment card prior to speaking on an item. There is no comment for consent agenda items or items under first presentation. Those called to speak will speak in the order that the speaker cards were taken by the city clerk at the beginning of tonight's meeting. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization. The city council may allow public comment on either an agenda item or general public comment from a representative of such an organized group, provided, however, that such an individual shall file a notarized affidavit that they have the authority to speak on behalf of said organization on a form provided by the city clerk prior to the meeting. Demonstration of any sort within this chamber is prohibited, so please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outbursts, or dialogue with any person speaking. Please show the same respect to the person speaking that you expect to receive yourself. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Joe Lockwood?
Here.
Councilmember Karen Thurman?
Here.
Councilmember Matt Kuntz?
Here.
Councilmember Bill Lusk is traveling and excused. Councilmember Burt Hewitt?
Here.
Councilmember Joe Longoria?
Here.
Councilmember Lance Large?
Here.
Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to welcome everybody here and Principal Jones and other Milton High School students for proclamation, as well as everybody that's here for business items. So glad to have you here. Our city clerk, please call our first item.
Our first item this evening is approval of meeting agenda. This is agenda item number 12197.
Okay. We need to add an executive session to discuss land acquisition. Does anyone else have anything else on the agenda? Okay. Do I have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
I'll second it.
Okay, I've got a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second by Councilmember Thurman to pass the agenda as stated with the addition of an executive session to discuss land acquisition. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay. Next item is public comment. Public comment is the time for citizens to share information with the mayor and city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. There's no discussion on items on the consent agenda or first presentations from the public or from council. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk. Please remember, this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record, and you'll have 5 minutes for remarks. Is there any general public comment?
There is not, sir.
Okay. And we'll move on to the consent agenda. If the city clerk will please call those items.
First item is approval of the August 6, 2012 regular council minutes. Agenda item number 12198. Next, approval of financial statements for the period ending July 2012. Agenda item number 12199. Approval of a contract renewal between the City of Milton and ADP for payroll, human resources, information systems, and timekeeping management. Agenda item number 12200. Fourth, approval of a change order to the professional services agreement between the City of Milton and Precision Planning to provide architectural design services for the City of Milton Public Safety Facility. Agenda item number 12201. Our fifth and final item, approval of professional services agreement between the City of Milton, Georgia and Universal Engineering Services, Inc. for Phase 1 Environmental Site Assessment, ESA, for a 7.06 acre tract on Hopewell Road. This is agenda item number 12202.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda as read by the city clerk.
I second that.
Okay, got a motion by Councilmember Longoria, second by Councilmember Large. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimous. Okay, we'll move on to reports and presentations. Will the city clerk please call the first item?
The first item is a proclamation recognizing the Milton High School Future Business Leaders of America, Chapter 1134. This is presented by Mayor Joe Lockwood.
Okay, I'm proud to present this proclamation, and tonight we've got some special guests. We got Ansley Aiken and other members of the Milton High School Future Business Leaders of America. The FBLA has been active at Milton for some time now, and it's the oldest and largest student business association in the world. Tonight we're going to highlight some of the accomplishments of the students, and after I read the proclamation, I'm going to ask everybody to step forward and join the council up front to make this presentation. So, I have a proclamation here recognizing the Milton High School Future Business Leaders of America, Chapter 1134. Whereas, since its creation in 1940, the Future Business Leaders of America, or FBLA, has become the largest and oldest student-run business organization in the United States, with 253,365 members. And whereas the Georgia chapters of FBLA started in Hapeville High School in 1947 as chapter number 83, and 2 years later, state chapter number 4 have more than 27,000 members, making it the largest state chapter for the last decade. And whereas Milton High School's FBLA Chapter 1134 has contributed to more than $300,000 raised in the last 7 years by state chapters to the March of Dimes. And whereas in the last year, Milton High's chapter adopted a local family and raised more than $200 plus gifts for them at Christmas. And whereas Milton High's FBLA has boasted 2 regional officers, 4 members who competed at regional competitions, and 2 members who competed at state and national competitions. And whereas Milton High's FBLA helps develop responsible, competent, and aggressive business leadership in its members. And whereas the chapter encourages members in the development of individual projects which continue to the improvement of home, business, and community. And whereas the Milton High FBLA develops character, prepares members for useful citizenship, and fosters patriotism, encourages scholarship, and promotes school loyalty, assists students in establishment of occupational goals, and helps facilitate the transition from school to work. Now therefore, we, the Mayor and City Council of the City of Milton, hereby dedicate Monday, August 20th, 2012, as Milton High School Future Business Leaders of America Day in the City of Milton, Georgia, and this is given under the hand and seal of Milton, Georgia, on the 20th day of August. So as I present this, I'd like to ask Ansley and everybody else to step forward, as well as Principal Jones and the council. I want to give Ansley a special recognition, though. She came and met with us here at the city and got all this set up, so thank her for that. Okay, there's no items on the first presentation or public hearing, so we're going to move on to our zoning agenda. Will the city clerk please read the zoning rules and regulations?
At the second regularly scheduled meeting of the month, the mayor and city council consider a zoning agenda. These items include rezoning, petitions, modifications of zoning, use permits, and associated concurrent variances, in addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments. I would like to acquaint you with some of the rules for this meeting. The applicant and all those speaking in support of the application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks provided time remains with the allotted time. The city clerk will be keeping track of this time and inform you periodically of the remaining time for your presentation. Those called to speak will be taken in the order that the speaker cards were received by the clerk. All speakers will identify themselves by name, address, and organization. The Planning Commission has heard the rezoning agenda items, and recommendations have been made to the mayor and city council for consideration. The applicant shall not submit material to the council during this meeting unless you are requested to do so. All material that you wish to be reviewed by the council for your application should be submitted to the Community Development Department to be included in the normal distribution of packages to the council. When an opponent of a rezoning action has made within 2 years preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local governmental official of the local government which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant state statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you have contributed $250 or more to a council member and you have not filed a disclosure prior to the commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak for your point of view. Our first zoning item this evening, RZ 1206, VC 1203, Deerfield Parkway by Crescent Resources, LLC, to rezone from C1 Community Business and OI Office Institutional to a medium-density apartment to develop a total of 256 residential units to an overall density of 12 units per acre. The applicant is also requesting a current variance to encroach into the 25-foot non-impervious setback by no more than 5,000 square feet. Section 24262. This is agenda item number 12141. The first presentation was at the June 4th regular council meeting. It was deferred at the June 18th regular council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. You have before you RZ 12-06 and VC 12-03. Shows a slide of the parcel, which is directly next to us to the south. In terms of the overview of the subject site, the site contains 21.368 acres, and it's undeveloped. The applicant seeks to rezone to A, medium-density apartment district for 256 apartment units. The existing zoning is C1, community business, for an assisted living facility and special school pursuant to RZ 10-05, U10-01 for the northern portion of the site. In the southern portion of the site plan, the existing zoning is O1, office institutional, at a density of 19,191 square feet per acre pursuant to Z99-11. This was most recently approved pursuant to ZM 10-03 for a 40,500 square foot data center. The site is located within the Deerfield Overlay District. This item was deferred to August 20th, tonight, to allow staff to gather the following information. And there are 6 points of information, and I will list them and then go through them each one by one. The first item that was requested was occupancy rates for the existing multifamily developments within the city. Secondly, the vacancy rates for office uses within the city. Third, city tax revenues for multifamily developments within the city. Fourth, which schools are impacted by existing multifamily developments. 5, what other parcels are currently zoned or land use planned for multifamily development available for development. And 6, a fiscal analysis as per the cost revenue model prepared by Dr. Jeffrey Dorfman. So in terms of the first one now, regarding occupancy rates for the existing multifamily developments within the city, you see 6 apartment developments that total 2,259 number of units, and the average percent occupied is 96.05%. Second, the vacancy rates for office uses within the city, specifically to the North Fulton area is really what we're looking at. We've identified different classes, Class A, Class B, Class C. You can see that the total square footage totals 27,763,693, with a vacancy rate of 14.9%. Next, city tax revenues for multifamily developments within the city. Again, we're looking at 6 developments. Again, the number of units, 2,259, and the amount of city taxes in 2011 totaled $334,614.17. In regard to the question on which schools are impacted by existing multifamily developments, with the exception of the Camden Deerfield development, which is the second one in your listing, all the other apartment developments, the schools impacted that are listed include Manning Oaks, Hopewell, and Alpharetta. In terms of Camden Deerfield, the schools impacted are Codburn Woods, Hopewell, and Cambridge. What other parcels are currently zoned or land use planned for multifamily development? Essentially, the current 2030 City of Milton future land use plan map shows only one multifamily residential area within the city, and it is located in the 100-year floodplain and not developable. I'm sorry, floodplain. However, our zoning ordinance does allow for a use permit that can be obtained for senior housing, owner-occupied senior housing. There are permits up to 20 units per acre within a multifamily zoning district, and those are the TR, the R6, and the A zoning districts. Or 15 units per acre for areas that are zoned single-family residential with sewer service on the property. So where our plan doesn't specifically show some, our use permit does allow senior housing if you meet those conditions. In regard to the fiscal impact for the 256 multifamily units, a cost revenue analysis was undertaken, and you can see the results of it here. We based it on a value per unit of $115,000. The estimated first year of permit revenue is $120,000, so that affects the first year worth of revenue. So you can see that as you look down below for year 2012, the annual net fiscal impact would be a minus 265,547. And that's because we had a plus of 120,000 that was impacting it that represents the fees. After that, the size of the revenue, the size of the shortfall increases. And over 20 years, when we ran it for 20 years, the total net fiscal impact represented a loss of $7,412,593. We've talked a lot about fiscal impact, school impact, but we haven't spent much time talking about site building design, as specifically as it relates to the site plan. And should the City Council decide tonight to approve this rezoning, you will be rezoning to a site plan. So considering the fact that it's such a large undeveloped parcel within the city, as you know, we do have a city architect under contract to us, and I did ask him to review this site and to give to you tonight his comments on the site. So I'd like to introduce to you Bob Buscemi, who is a city architect, and he's going to come up, and I'm going to turn the microphone over to him for a few minutes, and he is going to review with you his comments as they relate to the site. And then I'll come back to the podium after that. Bob, I don't know if you want me to this.
Hi, I'm Robert Buscemi, city architect. Kathy asked me to take a look at the site plan that was submitted. I do want the board to know that I met with the applicant twice prior to this, and we did go back and forth with different schemes and solutions. Based on what has been submitted here tonight, I have three issues or comments. In keeping in tune with the LCI and the intent of the LCI, block structure is a very important issue. Block structure is basically the layout of the streets. I think it's what makes the difference between what we consider a neighborhood versus a campus-style development. So if we take a look at what's been submitted here, there's two issues within the block structure that I'd like to highlight to you. All right, one would be to create roads versus drive aisles. If you look at the east side of the site, you can see the road that's coming in. This portion here, he's created just a parking lot drive aisle instead of an actual road. And the other point would be on the west side, that the streets that come down with campus-style development, you could do cul-de-sacs or dead ends. And with neighborhood-style, with the LCI, really what they're looking for is more interconnectivity, more block structure, more connections. So on this side, the west side here, as the road comes down, we'd like to see this connect to Deerfield down in this area here. So very simplistic drawing, but the orange is showing you the actual block layout, so it's easy to see. And you can see that the way it's set up here, this is the area where he's got the drive aisle, and this is the area where he's got the dead end. So we'd like to see this come back into Deerfield at some point. The next item would be building placement. Right now, most of the structures that are being shown in the site plan, the housing units themselves, which are the largest elements on the site plan, are basically showing where the side of the building is facing the street. So it's not running parallel with the street. And again, with a neighborhood design, it's almost like a residential. You'd want to see the front of the building face the street, because that is the prominent elevation. And this way we can kind of get a better feel as somebody's walking down the street. You can kind of get a feel for all the units and what they look like. So I think the other one would be rotated the buildings, you can start to see how they face the street. And then, instead of combining the parking areas, we suggested the parking areas be independent for each building so that they become smaller, and this way we can camouflage them more, and it doesn't look like a large sea of parking. Again, it's breaking it down into a neighborhood style versus a campus style. Also, with the contours on the site, everything is shown right now as a very flat and sort of a flat plane. But in reality, it does have quite a topography to it. So what I was hoping is if we turn these buildings to face the street, even though that there's a sharp grade difference, topography difference, that you'd be able to split the elevation and have that elevation broken up. So if you look at the front facade, if you look at the front facade, right now the building scales off to about 110 feet long, and you can see it's flat. But if it actually sloped, maybe possibly we could shear these off and step the building down, almost more like the townhouse look rather than a dormitory. And the last one is the open building entry stairwells. At present, right now, with garden-style apartments, it's very common to have an open-style entry, and the stairwell is all open. Of course, one of the prominent elements, if we were to enclose that, I think it would give it a much more residential style and look and appearance when people are walking by or driving by. So it kind of camouflage a little bit of that that style of, trying to break away from that apartment look from the street. And that's it. If you have any questions.
Are there any questions for Bob? Okay.
Okay, so back to the overview of the applicant's request. The request is to rezone to A, medium density apartments district, for 256 multifamily units. The units to be 1 and 2 bedroom units. You should note that the applicant deleted the 3-bedroom units per the August 9th plan. The development is not gated, but provides interconnectivity to adjacent properties. It provides open space to preserve trees, provides for pedestrian paths within development and interconnectivity with the existing sidewalk system. Amenity areas are scattered on the site. A farmer's market near Deerfield Parkway is proposed for the general population, and it provides some residential buildings along central roads with parking behind, with some on-street parking. Changes to the site plan and to the application since the June 18th meeting include, as I just mentioned, the units to be 1 and 2 bedroom units. All 3-bedroom units are deleted. Parking requirements were reduced from 406 to 390 spaces. However, the applicant is still providing 406 spaces. The revised site plan of August 9th depicts actual placement of buildings based on engineered grading plan, which is not consistent with providing a block configuration that encourages walkable neighborhoods. The revised site plan, August 9th, eliminates the right-in, right-out curb cut on the north end of the site. And here's the revised parking chart, which shows the 390 required. However, they are still going to provide the 406. We did also receive comments from the Public Works Department, and they are as follows. The results of the traffic study indicate that in existing conditions, the intersection of Morris Road at Deerfield Parkway does not operate at an acceptable level of service in the peak hour, based in part because of the opening of West Side Parkway. A project currently under design by the City of Milton for this intersection will improve the overall operations in the base and design years. This project would be needed regardless of this proposed development. We also received comments from Fulton County Board of Education as related to this rezoning, and you can see on this chart that none of the 3 schools that would be impacted can meet the demand of these students. You have in front of you the revised site plan that was submitted on August the 9th that we referred to. And just so that you remember this, there was a request for a concurrent variance to encroach into the 25-foot non-impervious setback by no more than 5,000 square foot. However, staff determined that the retention facility, whether earthen or walled, is permitted within the 25-foot non-impervious setback. Therefore, staff recommended withdrawal of this concurrent variance application. So that is still pending, but I just wanted you to remember what we had said about that. In terms of recommended conditions, the specific conditions are attached at the end of the staff report, pages 26 through 28. The summary of the conditions include no more than 256 units at 12 units per acre, 1 and 2 bedroom units only. Height shall not exceed 45 feet. To provide 2 bus shelters without signage as approved by the DRB. There should be an internal multi-use trails, shall be constructed of pervious materials as approved by the Community Development Department. Two full access drives and 1 right-in, right-out access on Deerfield Parkway shall be provided. And conditions as they continue include provide a 50-foot access easement along the southern driveway from the Deerfield Parkway right-of-way to the location on the south property line in order to provide interparcel access to the property to the south. To provide a 50-foot access easement free of any structures or utilities for vehicular and pedestrian interparcel access on the northwest property line. And then, of course, any site conditions as per Bob Buscemi's presentation relating to the site that you may want to add can be included also at this time. So in conclusion, the proposed 256 multifamily development is consistent with the policies and intent of the City of Milton Highway 9/Georgia 400 Master Plan if approved with staff's recommended conditions. Therefore, staff recommends that this request to rezone to A, medium density apartment district RZ 12-06 be approved conditional. Further, staff recommends withdrawal of VC 12-03. And that concludes my presentation, Mr. Mayor, and certainly would be willing to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions for staff at this point?
Not at this point.
Okay. I have one question. When you go back to your financial calculations and the costs,
You want me to switch back to it?
just, yeah, briefly, how is that, basically calculated with the cost of the revenue from taxes minus the cost of services, which include what?
All services within the city. This was a program that Dr. Dorfman put together after analyzing what all the costs of the services are based on particular land uses. So for this particular land use, the cost of services, and it was basically public safety that was the most expensive service to be provided as it related to multifamily developments.
Any other questions?
Just to clarify, so public safety is one. I mean, other services that we provide are parks and recreation. Is that correct? Is that factored into it?
But
I mean, the services, what do the services that provide that were factored into this?
Well, it was all the services within the city.
Right.
And what the cost for each department to service a particular land use. And so they were quantified and put together into a program that was Dr. Dorfman created. And so we can then plug in a particular land use, and based on the costs that he found, as well as the revenues from the taxes that we can plug in as well, we can then analyze whether there's a plus or minus for a particular land use.
But this is basically a generic land use for each category, is that correct?
It's,
I mean, like you take an apartment.
yes,
it's
it would be
generic.
for multifamily, that's right.
Right.
I guess that would be my question. That's generic versus if this was upscale, much higher rents, incomes, the property values would be based on that, which in return could bring in more
That's right.
tax revenue for the city.
That's right.
So, okay.
Okay.
Well, the model does allow for a variance as to the revenue part of it based on what you project the revenue is per value per unit, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
But it assumes that the cost is pretty well standard.
For each land use, we
Right.
quantify the cost based on each land use. So the cost to service a single-family house, for instance, is going to be a lot less than the cost of servicing a multifamily.
But the revenue side of it does take into account what is projected to be the value per unit that would be
That is
generating
correct.
revenue.
And we used here $115,000 per unit for value.
I guess my question on that would be, would he have plugged in the value for, based it on the rental income from these projects? Because at $115,000 value, you know, when you bring the rental on up to what we were presented with or what the applicant had said, it should be worth a lot more than that. So I'm just wondering, do you think that Dr. Dorfman plugged in anything special for this project, or?
Robin, Robin actually did it for me, but I believe it's just based on the tax revenue that is generated from.
Yeah,
Robin,
this-
go ahead.
Yeah, the 115,000 was, or estimated, 115,000 was given to us by the applicant for the value per unit. And this wouldn't, as far as I know, consider any kind of rental, because it actually also applies to townhomes. When we say multifamily, it's not just stacked flats or whatever, but it's also, townhomes are lumped into that same category in his model, so.
Because I'm just asking because it seems like, you know, maybe they have $115,000 for the cost of the construction, but if you've got an asset that brings in $30,000 a year, that value should raise the property value up to, you know, say $300,000 a unit or $250,000. So I just wonder if that would catch up and bring our revenue up. But, if that was taken into consideration. Vince?
Jeff?
Yes.
Also, I know, I don't know how you put a figure to this, does it take into account the occupancy and disposable income of the people in the property as far as spending disposable income in the area and the sales tax that would come back to the city in terms of sales tax?
It's probably separate.
I think it's just
No,
land
it
use.
doesn't do that.
It's just related to land use.
Now, the sales tax is calculated on county-wide, so there's no way to look at
No, I understand.
the impact of
Just
it.
interject real
Yeah,
quick.
go ahead,
You know,
Chris.
I think, you know, if we were to get back up at the high level of what this financial impact model is supposed to do, and that's really to look more, not necessarily at, is it $265,547, or is it based on some assumptions? Are we getting in the ballpark by suggesting that, you know, yes, there's probably some subjectivity in any of these numbers, and what you put in is going to indicate what you get out. I think what you're looking at, though, here more is, and I don't think this would shock anybody, is that when you start to put fairly high-density housing together on a piece of property, it is going to cost more to serve that than it is other uses in Milton. That's kind of the takeaway from this. Not that it's $547, but, you know, it would cost more to serve this property developed this way than it would be to develop it in certain other ways. Now, that doesn't mean that necessarily that's bad, but that's just the reality of what this is trying to point out. And it is but one of a host of things that you should use in your decision-making process.
Okay. And I certainly could agree with that. It just, you know, those numbers stuck out to me as they were excessively high on the cost, so. Karen?
Did we run a comparison as if you put 100,000 square feet of office on that same site, what the numbers would look like?
Right now, 0.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
What the
this
absorption
market.
rate would be.
The answer to your question is I don't think we did. No, we ran the specific use, not the assortment of what might be type uses. You could.
I could run them on a computer and do it if you really need to.
All right. So, first, we can hear from those in support of this application.
Mr. Mayor, before the time begins, if I could have a request of y'all. We had benefit of opportunity to review and analyze the staff report and recommendations. There was not a part of that, part of the presentation that you had this evening on the site plan, the architecture. We would like to be able to respond to that as we are responding to other questions that you all raised last time, as you'll see in a few minutes. If we could have a few minutes more time, we would appreciate that. We've pretty well dovetailed our program to the 10 minutes that we've got.
I'll leave it up to council, but obviously we just need to give both sides the equal amount. So if council's okay with that, it looks like we are. We'll add another 5 minutes. Would that?
Sure, that'd be perfect. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Pete Hendricks, practice law at 6085 Lake Forest Drive, Sandy Springs. Kathy's been through the whole litany of the staff review analysis, compliance with the land plan, particularly with a view of your adoption of the CID for Highway 9 Georgia 400 master plan, together with the unanimous approval of the Design Review Board, your Planning Commission. And what I'd like quickly to hit on is, if you've got me making this presentation tonight, but also I was involved in part of the architectural team that back in 1996 put the entire 540 acres together that constitutes Deerfield. Back at that point in time, we did not have an MIX zoning classification. All we had was a full litany of C1, OI, TR, A apartments. So we had to sit down and best guesstimate where the market would take us with those different zoning classifications, and those were the zonings to which this property was put in 1996. The first revisit that you all have had, a professional review and analysis, has been the CID that you all unanimously adopted and then has recommended this use for this particular piece of property. Also, the market has come to this piece of property fairly recently, within the last couple of years. Some of you were on council, some of you were not on council. But I brought forward under the existing OI, C1 zoning, the autistic center, under the existing OI zoning, the office use for the computer center. After a lot of time and a lot of money was spent on getting those entitlements, the market just was not there. So under those conditions, under those zonings that are in place right now that we're asking to rezone from, we have had the market come to it within the last 2 years, and there simply hadn't been a market for it. At this point in time, I'd like Ben Collins to step up, who heads up the multifamily for the Southeast Fort Crescent. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. We appreciate the opportunity to be here in front of you again this evening. We have been hard at work since our last time in front of you. We have fully developed our plans, four-sided architecture. We've gone through and spent the money on grading plans, tree surveys. We are actually ready to submit water and sewer plans this week if we are successful this evening. Since our last meeting, our company's committed another $100 million of equity to our platform to fund this development and others. We believe very strongly that this is a core asset in our portfolio. And as recent as this morning, I had a meeting with our CEO and CFO talking about the importance of reoccurring income to our future viability of our company. And this is very much a property that we want to see in our future portfolio. In addition to developing four-sided architecture, we've worked hard with our award-winning architect, Historical Concepts, who is a master at placemaking. We've won many awards across our company, including Travel and Leisure's #1 resort in the United States that they designed for us in Palmetto Bluff. So I would put this architecture firm up against any architecture firm in the country as far as creating a place and really creating an exceptional award-winning community. We've also been hard at work talking with local business leaders. We have, in addition to getting unanimous support both at the Design Review Board and the Planning Commission, we've recruited very much support within the City of Milton. The Deerfield Association, many of its members have come out in support of us. Sembler has sent a letter into the city in support of what we're doing and what we would do for their business. Hines is actually representative here tonight, who is very much in support of what we're proposing. Jim Pierce, who represents the ownership at Windward Plaza, is here tonight and very much in support of what we're doing. nearly every business leader that we've talked to in this community has supported what we're doing, and that's part of the reason we're here tonight. Dr. Phillips is here with us. She is a professor of housing studies at Georgia Tech and University of Georgia. She spent 25 years studying housing and really what the realities of multifamily housing are today. Before we go on to address some other questions, I wanted to take just a couple minutes and let her make a short presentation.
Thank you. I could take 4 days, so I'm going to try to take 3 minutes real quick. The renter profile is changing, and I just wanted to share with you on your screen real quick that for the last 50 years, married couples with children drove America's housing industry, but today that only accounts for less than 22% of all households. And you can see that kind of the new news is that we have more singles, we have fewer households with children. And today, it's important to note that 86% of all household growth over the next 30 years will be those without children. So the two takeaways that I really want you to focus on tonight is the young adults, the Generation Y, we hear them called echo boomers, millennials, and also the empty nesters in their 50s. Just real quick, I research both on the supply side and the demand side. Generation Y, they can't really afford to buy a home at the moment, nor do they want the responsibility, and they are kind of redefining the American dream. Also, really important to Gen Y is this whole notion of walkability. They want large community gathering spaces. They want smaller homes, smaller living spaces, and high connectivity. They were born with a laptop in their crib, so they want connectivity to shops and restaurants and entertainment, but more importantly, they want to walk to work. Empty nesters, let me go back just real quick. Our empty nesters, they really want to age in place. They want freedom from mortgage payments, but what's really driving this group is the sense of community. They want to be near their grandkids, but they don't want to live with them. Just real quick on the Generation Y, through 2017, 4.3 million will be turning age 22. So the majority of Generation Y wants to stay in the region that they grew up in. And also, they're leaving home later. They're leaving the nest later. So this is going to make for pent-up demand in the future. The three basic categories of renters today are Generation Y, and then I refer to them in the articles I write, DINKs, double income, no kids. These people are career focused. They travel for work, so they want to come home and relax on the weekend. They have large discretionary incomes. Our empty nesters, I refer to them in the articles, downshifting boomers. Many of them are still working, and believe it or not, they use that 3-bedroom or the 3rd bedroom for the office. So connectivity is still very, very important for this profile as well. We have high incomes, household incomes with in excess of $75,000 annually, represented 1/5 of the increase over the last 5 years. Generation Y, I do a lot of research about will Generation Y pay for walkability? Will they pay for sustainability? And 23% will pay for a premium to live close to their jobs. 79% want a variety of housing types. 2/3 say that living in a walkable community is very important. And even among families with children, they say that they were willing to trade a larger lot size or an ideal home for being close and being in a live, work, play community. There's many financial impacts for multifamily. You nailed it when you said that they stay here, they spend here, and it's important that they can shop and dine and spend money on entertainment. So they want to be close to where they work and play. And lastly, just real quick, there's a lot of trending away from drivable suburbanism, and we use the term walkable urbanism, and I applaud you for what you've done in form-based codes. But really importantly, these two groups, these two age cohorts, Generation Y and our empty nesters, they want more parks, public spaces, focus on recreation, but really they're looking for cool places to live, work, and retire. And the last slide, I just say that, you know, sustainable suburbs are vibrant, and they're attracting all users and citizens, but more importantly, it's the kind of talent that you're going to be able to attract to your community in a live, work, play environment. So that's a quick rundown. Thank you.
We still have 5 minutes on the clock.
I know this is a difficult vote for y'all tonight. I know that you're concerned about giving up one of the few commercial tracks that you have in Milton. I know that this is a risk. I know that it's a risk that we won't do what we're saying that we're going to do, even though we have full capital committed and our plan on starting construction this year. I know it's a risk that this will be the same old multifamily development that we've seen in our communities, and I'm telling you that that's not going to be the case. I know it's a risk that this won't attract the young professionals that we fully believe and are willing to invest, that it will attract those young professionals. And I know it's a risk that this isn't one of the key ingredients that the city of Milton needs in the future. I'm here tonight to tell you why this is a risk worth taking. A few short months ago, you adopted the Highway 9 Georgia 400 Master Plan. One of the reasons you undertook this effort, presumably, is because you care very deeply about the future of the city of Milton. So do we. We've been a major landowner here for nearly 10 years. We have 450,000 square feet of entitled office space outside of this site, about half of which is in the city of Milton. And we very much want to develop that property. That market is not here today. Communities are complex recipes. Too much of one thing or not enough of another mean that you won't have the thriving community that you hope for. It's kind of like grandma's apple pie, right? Too much butter, too little brown sugar, and it doesn't turn out quite right. Communities are the very same thing. There isn't a single additional site in the city of Milton that could be developed for multifamily housing. Not only now, but even with this site being considered, there isn't a single other site in the LCI that was contemplated for multifamily housing. There hasn't been a multifamily site developed in this city for 10 years, and there likely won't be for the next 20 years. This is your opportunity. We're not asking you to approve this rezoning because your plan, the LCI, calls for it. We're asking you to approve it because we believe it's a key ingredient for your future. It's a key ingredient to attract young professionals. It's a key ingredient to attract executive housing, provide executive housing for relocating businesses. It's a key ingredient to show other developers exactly what you mean by preserving the rural and equestrian nature of your city. It is a key ingredient to recruiting new office investment to pad-ready office sites that are in the market today. Both Hines and us own those sites, and Hines has sent a letter to you all saying how much they would support this development and how much we need this type of housing. It's a key ingredient to support local retailers. Our residents will have an average household income of upwards of $70,000 to $80,000 a year. Based on disposable income calculations, that means $6 million of additional disposable income will be spent at your local businesses. It is a key ingredient to tell the business community and that the city of Milton is open for business. It's been 7 years since a major investment of this size has been made in the city of Milton. We're proposing to begin a $30 million development this year that will have institutional capital, big banks, J.P. Morgan Chase, Capital One, Regions Bank are some of our key lenders. One of those lenders is going to make a $23 million construction loan in your community, and that's a big deal. Bringing institutional capital to this market will give the nod to other institutional investors that they can invest in Milton as well. We're not asking for you to vote for just another multifamily development. We're asking you to support the future vibrancy and sustainability of the city of Milton. With that, I want to turn the mic over to John Bell to give a few closing remarks.
John Bell, Senior Regional Vice President of Crescent Resources. Appreciate your time here tonight. As Ben mentioned, the office market is desperate for this type of walkable product. We're losing tenants to other submarkets in other cities. By example, in Nashville, our multifamily team executed a development just like what we're talking about and it was a key ingredient for us to attract Jackson National Life Regional Headquarters, total of 160,000 square feet. They are occupying, their young professionals are occupying 25% of that 400-bedroom multifamily housing. We're invested, guys. We are invested. We have 35 acres, a portion of which is in Alfred, a portion of which is in Milton. I develop office buildings. We've developed 2 in Deerfield, and we want to develop a lot more, and we need this type of welcome community. We're desperate for it. Thank you.
We do not have any comment in opposition.
No opposition? Okay. And there's the time. The time is done.
They've got 1 minute remaining. They've got 1 minute remaining.
Okay. You've got 1 minute
I'd
remaining.
just like to make a confirmation, as with staff's suggestion, we have asked that the concurrent variance be withdrawn, so we're all on the same page with that. And just respectfully request your approval of the application. Thank you.
Okay. And there's no other public comment on this item? Sue, is that correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Then I'll close the public hearing and open it up for council discussion or any questions to either staff or the applicant. Joe.
Yeah. First of all, I appreciate the presentation by the applicant. It's informative. I also like the follow-up from the staff. So, Kathy, there you are. That was good information as well. And I have no doubt that given the opportunity, the applicant wouldn't do exactly what they say they're going to do. I have no doubt whatsoever that, and unfortunately, though, that's not the issue that is foremost in my mind regarding the request that's being made to the city council. I'm much more concerned with what I would call, well, it's the other side of the equation. Have a walkable, neighborhood and a walkable community. You need both parts of it. You need the place for people to live. You need the place for people to work. And, I would say that we're sort of balanced. Well, maybe not completely balanced, but we certainly have plenty of places to live on Deerfield. We also have places to work on Deerfield. And so the responsibility comes back to, what does Milton need as a city? And not only in just this small area, but citywide. And Milton has got a lot of area to deal with. And unfortunately, there's not a lot of commercial space in the city. The majority of the city is made up of residential or parcels that would be zoned where primarily the land use is residential. And we need to balance that out. And our challenge here is taking something that is very finite, which is the commercial property, and managing it in a way that provides us with the options that we need moving forward. So my concern right now is, if we change the zoning here, it's something that we can't get back. And I agree that there's nobody rushing to build additional commercial property right now. That's unfortunate. I certainly don't wish anybody a burden of having to deal with property that they can't develop for its stated purpose right now. But at the same time, it won't always be this way. There's going to be a point in time, and hopefully the not too distant future, where this type of property and its current zoning is going to be very important. And so I'm just have concerns about that. I'll stop there, but that's really what my thought process is right now.
Good. Anybody else have anything?
Mayor.
Lance?
First thing, I live in this district that this property resides in. My distinguished colleague here lives in the adjacent district, although we serve the city at large, as all council members do. I chose to live in this area when we moved here. And one thing we like is the fact that the conveniences that we have available to us in this area. My wife enjoys that, and I do as well. I hear what Councilman Longoria has to say, although I do hear the fact that we have commercial property, but we have to make it attractive in order to market it. And if we don't have a mix to the entire area, what I hear from Crescent, and correct me if I'm wrong, or verify it, please, what you're saying for your purposes too, that you tie this development to the remaining property and the existing properties you have in this area right now. And you probably have a good number, and I've heard this from Al Nash with Progress Partners and other folks with the Chamber, that we have a lot of people that work here. There's been a reverse trend that work up here that want to live down closer to the city where there's more walkability and more conveniences, maybe coming from Buckhead that working up here, but going back to Buckhead. And one of the successes, we talk about economic development in this city. Well, it takes more than just building office buildings or building flex buildings. And what we're going to have is professional up here. We're not going to have light industrial like Fulton, like Forsyth has. I mean, we don't have property for that, and frankly, I don't think anyone wants that here in Milton. And I've heard a lot about the dinks. I'm an empty nester. I moved my nest, so and came here. But you know, the empty nesters, the dinks, the Generation Y, the fact that different things motivate these individuals in work and in their choices of housing. And flexibility is one of the things that is a key factor here. And people, what part of the problem we have right now are people trapped in their houses that can't move. We talk about unemployment, but also there are positions available, and that some people can't move because they're upside down in their houses. They may come to an area, have the flexibility to come here, but move or be more mobile. And we're much more mobile society. Plus, there's a good number of people that work out of their houses. There's a lot of people in the city of Milton that work out of their homes. I'm working out of my home now. I think Mr. Longoria here has done the same thing. So there's not traditionally the office environment either. So, frankly, I feel that, sure, we're giving up land that could be built in office, but I can tell you it won't get built in office anytime soon based on the market that we have. But if we create the right environment, it may make it more marketable, able to market the other properties that we do have for commercial here in the city. And therefore, we can get that type of product here, those individuals working here and living here and spending money here and helping the businesses. I'm a big supporter of the Milton Business Alliance. I go to all their meetings. My wife's a member of it. All of that. So you do have to create that mix. I've looked at Crescent. I've looked at their websites. I've looked at their products. One thing I want to make sure that if this thing's approved, that you guys build this thing. You know, that there have been developments that I've seen where, you know, entitlements are done, and then next thing you know, the property's sold with the entitlement. But I have no doubt that Crescent will be the one developing this property in the same quality way that they have done in the past. I know there's really no way of tying you down, but I would say that's what I want to see happen with this development. As far as some of the other comments that are made through staff, you know, I don't know how, as far as working through some of that, because you are at a much farther point along in terms of, you know, site circulation, some of the comments that the city architect made. You know, I don't know how we resolve that or what, but, you know, for someone to step up and make the $30-some million investment in our community at this point, you don't see it happening very often. I mean, you really don't. Not these days. Sure, it's a risk, but my feeling on this is, again, is the marketability of the entire area, the Deerfield Activity Center, the Highway 9 corridor, and the other properties adjacent to that. So that's basically where I stand.
Karen?
in order to really have the live, work, play that we keep hearing about, you've got to have live, work, and play. And I believe right now we have an awful lot of live, and what we really need is more work areas. If we had a bunch of vacant land, if this wasn't a key piece for this area, and there were other vacant areas where we could put in the office, then I could very easily support this. The fact that we're taking our last key piece of property that had previously been reflected as being office and taking it off the market, I know right now there may not be a need for additional office. We will get to the point one of these days we will, and I've got to think long term. I'm not going to make any decision based on what's happening right now. I want to make a decision based on what is best for Milton in the long run. And the fact that this kind of development will take away a key piece of property that could be a office building, could be a great opportunity for some of the professionals who live in the area to work. The fact that it will cost the city significantly, $7 million over the next, 20 years. The fact that it will overburden the schools that are already at capacity. I just cannot, I can't think short term and approve something like this that has long term, I don't really feel like is in the best interest of the city. Like I said, I believe we have a lot of live. If you look at the number of houses and multifamily that we have right in this area, it's significant. There's plenty of places for people who really would like to live in the area, There's a lot of people living in this area who don't have a place to work in the area, and they're driving elsewhere. What we really need is some places for people to work in the area. And so I really can't support taking a piece of property that could fulfill and really make this live, work, play what I believe it should be, which is some more work in there, and put it for something that's going to cost the city that much and cost all of our residents that much in the long term, and also overburden our schools even more than they already are.
Good. Anybody else? Yeah?
Wait a minute.
Do you have anything? He's already spoke, so I was just going to give you a shot.
I will in a second. I'm still thinking.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well.
One thing, as far as schools are concerned, I've been to several seminars, continuing education, whatever you want to call it. There is in supporting what the young lady there from Georgia Tech and from the University of Georgia, which really is quite a contrast there. I don't have a problem with it on one day, really. I understand. That there is a reverse trend in terms of school-age children, and that the trend that we've been seeing where you're opening schools and putting portables out there, and I've done, as a lot of these folks on the city board here knows, that I've done a lot of schools in my past, not here, but as Joe likes to remind me, in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Mayor Joe always likes to remind me of that. But there is a reverse trend. And actually, there are a trend that some of these schools, there are going to be less demand for secondary education. And so as far as the thought is the burden on the schools, I really have no problem as far as that as being an issue. The economic analysis, again, plug it into a computer, that's great. What comes out of a computer and what's reality are two different things. And you can do all sorts of, accounting. They say, and I'm not meaning this against the accountant down there at the other end of the table there, but with statistics and accounting, you can almost prove anything, depending on, especially statistics. Give them a point, and they can prove it with statistics. So, again, I think it's a risk somewhat, but some of the things that have been brought up, I just have to take some of that with a grain of salt at this point.
Good. Bert?
The $7 million over 20 years does, that's a big number. you know, if you look at the other 2,500 units we have, if you take that out, you know, that's $70 million for those as well. That's a big number over 20 years. If this was to get approved with these conditions that the staff has recommended, how will the adding the right in, right out driveway, Deerfield, I guess it would be the one closest to us here, how is that going to change the site plan? And was it simply just go onto that parking lot there and come out of that, or how is that going to affect things?
We have been debating this with staff really since the beginning. We feel like it doesn't create a dead-end connection at the end. We would ask council to consider not having that right in, right out. Really, the purpose of that is that we've done a full tree survey on the site. We've surveyed every tree 8 inches and larger, and we're saving actually 512 trees across the site. That right in, right out preserves really eliminating that right in, right out really allows us to preserve this entire area tree save, which is where we have some of our larger specimen trees. And we feel like the traffic engineer has indicated that we really need the additional entrance because of for traffic purposes, and we feel like creating sort of a turnaround here to come back out really sets up for a better site design. Quite honestly, we have another plan that shows a right in, right out here. It does begin to impact the culvert over the creek, and so that creates an issue. We'd have to go get an Army Corps permit, and we would not be able to start construction this year. It would kick in the first quarter of next year. But really, the driving factor is we felt like, as you can see, we've created this giant amenity area all along Deerfield Parkway, a lot of which is open to the public, and that particular area is the area we're going to save.
So it would shift those two buildings that way? And the drive would go in between the pond, the retention pond, and that smaller building?
Right.
And how about any of the other comments that our city architect made? Or is there any, didn't really address
Sure.
those?
I'd be happy to address in more detail. In fact, we do have Jim Strickland here. He's a principal at Historical Concepts. It really was the kind of visioneer behind this plan. Jim, would you like to say a couple words? Catch him on the spot, but we've taken all the information into consideration. Really, we tried to break down the scale of the development by moving the buildings further back, working with grade. We've done a full grading. This is all based on final engineered drawings. And what you don't see is a big drop in grade from front to back in several key locations. And the orientation of these buildings really kind of split right with the grade. You'll see grade split in 4 stories on this side, 3 stories on that side. We felt, based on our conversation with Bob, that this being a primary future connection, that we did reorient these buildings to create that block structure along this future connection. We did feel like those connections were, or that was important, as important as the back of the property. You can see if you move these buildings this way, we lose this whole tree save area and we lose this whole tree save area, which we felt like were more important in creating the special place that we want to create than simply turning the buildings along this property and providing parking all along the back of it. It works great in 2D, but not really when you're trying to work with the land and create the best plan possible.
You mentioned the future connection that going to the Fry's, I guess, parking lot. Are they willing to connect? Has there been any dialogue?
We have begun conversations on that.
Okay.
Finished conversations on that. So they did indicate that they felt like that would be receptive from their ownership, and that having the additional cross connection would support their retail development. We haven't finalized that yet, though.
And is your plan, if you were to build this, to go and do the whole, not phase it, but
No, we build it all at once.
Okay.
We have equity in place, construction financing in place to start in 3 months, and our team of architects and engineers that are here tonight and ready to start drawing first thing tomorrow.
And is Carter still here?
He's right
Oh,
there.
he's right there hiding. I mean, what are your thoughts on the right in and right out drive?
Well, it's probably more important from an internal circulation than an access standpoint. But the other two driveways that would serve primarily as the full access, and that right in, right out would just enhance internal circulation.
Okay.
I have a question for Carter along those same lines.
I don't know while the architect, if he's,
Yeah, go ahead.
if you want to make any comments.
I think y'all done a great job with your town and with this particular road. As I first came here and I looked at it, I could not believe that the offices and the office parks that were around it were so beautiful. And when I first looked at it, but then I got out and I walked the site. There's some very challenging things, which is this wall behind the existing commercial, which goes up to almost 40 feet. The topo is also very exciting and very beautiful. But this entire area right here is wooded. And as you come down the hill, you can look across the lower area, which is where the lake that they're looking at doing, where the little boat shed, and where the old farm, which is your heritage. And then by turning these buildings this way, we actually did not want to present the big elevation. We wanted to present the smaller elevation to this particular road that came in and went down. This is a very small building. These are small buildings which are also apartments. You've never heard of an apartment company doing this. And then to come in and create the old barn for the gym, to create the clubhouse and the old original farmhouse with an orchard, coming back in, and this is for the market. And what you did, and y'all have done it so well, with your drive and your walks that go down, and the serpentine, it's so picturesque, but it's going to come off onto this, which could be a Saturday sales. I mean, you could have, something that would be selling fruit or whatever else is in there. They're really for real. This young man is unusual. I think you really have somebody that would serve you very, very well. That's not this young man.
No.
Thank you. Matt, or you want me to go first? Or
I'll let you go.
Okay, all right. I know there's a lot of tough decisions here, and I certainly understand and respect everybody's point. I have a hard time, while I certainly realize that office use there would possibly bring in more revenue or cost the city less. Also realize that there's a time versus money, and right now vacant land doesn't bring any income into the city, or a very small amount. I also think that with the values of this property, it's going to be much more than the model looks at. So I can't agree with those numbers of it costing us that much. And I think if we look at the whole picture and add in not only the sales tax, and I understand the sales tax is county-wide, but it still generates sales tax that the city would see, but also the additional retail, the help for our existing businesses around it that will be affected both by walk and traffic. When you got that many more people living there, they're going to be buying a whole lot more stuff. And as we know, our developments over there on Highway 9 are hurting. So I think that could spur some growth there. I also think it could spur some growth with potential new office buildings around the office land. A lot of companies, that's one thing they look for, is somewhere that their employees can live. And if you talk to people at Verizon and some of these other big corporations we have, very few of their actual employees have a place to live here in Milton. The other thing I certainly understand, zone for office, we could put more office in there. The majority of Milton is residential, but to me, if we put more office there, it's the same old thing. We've got more office. We've got more people getting in their cars, and if it's the executive, they can, spend $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 on a house on the other side of Milton, but the majority of the workers can't. I know we just did a project down in Brookhaven, and they've got real upscale apartment homes in it, and they're full and it's vibrant. And I just see this as kind of being a heartbeat that might turn this area around, have a place to draw the city of Milton, help our businesses, help our retail. You know, again, I think it's opened up some housing for both young people that grow up here and then move out of their parents' house and can't live there, or vice versa. Give people options to live in as they're older and they want to scale back. I just certainly think it would be a good thing for the city and our area here. And so I support it, because I think when you consider it's a project that starts now, brings in more citizens, more people, gives our folks more opportunity for our businesses and retail and all that. I think it's a good fit here. So I certainly want to step out and say that I do support this development. Matt, you got anything to say?
Yeah, this was something I weighed back and forth quite heavily, and we have a great opportunity here. I think, with not just looking at this land in itself, but also the statement that we're making. In one hand, we have a great developer that does good work that I know is going to build a great product from that standpoint. I know our DRB likes it. I know our Planning Commission likes it. Attracting quality tenants is an example. We want to have a good relationship with good developers. The problem, though, is that what is it we want to be as a city? And it's higher than that. We sit here and we try to decide whether or not we want to be a sustainable community, and I can't see us being sustainable without the commercial property that we have. I just don't see that. I see us sit here, and if we give that away, we're not going to get that back. Possibly if the Arnold Mill development comes along, but that may not happen for 30 years. And as a city where we are, I cannot say that this particular piece of property is going to bring in more revenue for the city of Milton. If we get quality tenants, I don't see us having those tenants shop in Milton. I see them walking down the streets of Alpharetta. Used to be, it could have been our property. I just don't see that. I don't see them walking over to, if they are walking around here, they're not spending money in Milton. I just don't see that. I see them being here living, and I see this being a drain on our city until such time that we can attract the commercial development that comes. I would sit here and I want to see us as a city decide that we can be the best we can be, that we can attract a vibrant community, that we can have a mixed development right next door where people can go shopping, where people can go to restaurants, where people can walk in this community. And I don't want to take it from this standpoint anymore where we're just going to accept things because the market being bad. We're better than that. We're much better than that. And I know that it's tough. I know that it's difficult, but it will come back. And when it does come back, we have every opportunity to be the best that we're able to be. This is tough. I want to see a developer. I want to have a good relationship with the developer that's very good. But who are we as Milton? And in my mind, I see us being a talented group of people that can get things done despite the odds. And in my mind, how are we going to vote on this is going to decide what the statement is going to be to the region, to Alpharetta, to Johns Creek, to Canton, to Roswell, that we are open for business, that we're not going to sit by and say we're just going to take residential properties anymore. This vote is that statement. So from my standpoint, I can't support this philosophically. I believe economically that we can do great things. I believe this property will be great, but I believe it will serve the citizens of Milton, that we will come and we will spend money on that property, and those tax dollars will go to provide other services, other things for this community. And it's a tough decision, but I can't walk away saying that, we just gave in. I can't. So I don't support it.
Could you mind just addressing too, and although it can certainly be one of many factors, but the financial feasibility of a project for zoning, can you address that?
Mayor, to the extent that the question is can the financial feasibility from the standpoint of will the development from a tax-based standpoint support the services necessary to provide services to that development? It can be one factor, but it cannot be. I believe the law does not tolerate it being a single factor, because if it was as easy as the government being able to say that we think we cannot provide the infrastructure to that development, and therefore we're going to deny it for that singular reason, well then that would be a very easy way for a lot of jurisdictions to deny everything, because there would simply just not, there'd be no incentive to ever build out, to increase roads, increase sewer, increase things of that nature. So I don't think the law anticipates that can be the sole reason, but it can be a reason among many others. Yes.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything? Lance?
One thing what Matt had to say, and of course Matt and I are newbies on the board, and we usually agree, but sometimes we disagree. One of the statements he made, the people walking down to Alpharetta, the shop, we get 1% of those taxes. Remember, regardless of where you shop in Fulton County, the taxes collected, unless they're drinking. Well, they're drinking, and they might want to drink within walkable distance, so they don't have to have a designated driver, and they can just kind of stagger home. But we get the most revenue from that. But as far as general retail and any of that, it's going to be proportionate. We're going through that right now with the negotiations with Fulton County. So using that as a really reason, I don't think it really holds much water. Again, agreeing to disagree, I feel you have to be a little more visionary sometimes too. And part of that is taking some risk. And that's what developers do every day. We had it during the campaign where vilifying developers, not me or you, but we said there's the ones that build cities.
Right.
We don't do it. Yep.
You through?
Can I answer that?
Well,
sort of finish up and then Karen wants to say something.
Well, again, I really think the strong connection, the LCI showed multifamily on this. We approved the LCI. You approved the LCI.
The LCI shows a mixed use for that whole area.
One at a time.
It doesn't show multifamily.
Okay, and then my last question is, as far as this concept, what is it? I mean, we're going to approve an autism center, which was housing. And again, looking at that, what kind of revenue versus services was that going to generate on this piece of property? And we had a data center, and I'm big on data centers but this low number of people associated with the data center, assets high. But we've already been there. But what would you have to do to this project to make it more palatable, to maybe have more mixed use, and design it more in the way of the LCI envisioned it, so we don't just throw out the baby with the bathwater?
I mean, I'd love to have mixed use. I mean, I was here at the LCI meeting and put the blocks on that piece of land for mixed use. It was from that standpoint, and that's the compromise. We understand that times are tough as it is. I'm not against any family being there, but we are trying to make this a live, work, play community. As Karen said, we need all facets of that, not just the live aspect. We need all facets of that. My vision is, when we go down to Savannah and we see that little area by the hotel where we were staying, where everybody was walking and eating and seeing things, and then they had complexes nearby as well where they can live and all that. And that's what I vision for that area. That's what I vision for Deerfield, because we already have a 95% occupied rate for people that need somewhere to walk in Milton. And I just don't see that place right now. I want to see that as a vision. I'd love to see that kind of area with the connect through that goes through to Fry's, and one where kids aren't throwing baseballs in the middle of the road as people are driving through. That's my concern. I really see this as a statement of what is it we want to be. And I want to work with a good developer as such, but at the same time, we already owe it to our citizens to use the land that was currently zoned for something with an intent to be some type of commercial land, to have that continued intent as we go forward in the future.
Or a mixed use.
Or a mixed use. It still has that similar intent, though, of some kind, or some part of that. But not get rid of it entirely. I think it says the wrong message.
One thing I'll just add, again, it's not a huge deal, but as I'm going through the loss negotiations, and one of the big parameters is population. So ultimately, if there's more citizens here, it would bring a little bit more tax dollars. The other thing I have to say is probably, since we've been a city, it's probably the first rezoning we've had where I haven't had one negative comment or somebody speaking against. So whatever.
We have received a few emails, though.
You have?
Go ahead, Karen. Yeah, go.
Am I allowed to?
No, go. Yes, of course.
From the studies were done as far as where people lived, where people worked, it showed that most people that live in Milton have to work outside of Milton. And that leads me to believe the fact that, and I know when my firm was looking 3 years ago to open an office up in North Fulton, we looked at several buildings in Milton and they didn't have any vacancy that would work for us. So we ended up opening our office in Alpharetta because we didn't have that option in Milton. And so I think that, we're showing 15% vacancy rate. That's all of North Fulton. That goes all the way down to Sandy Springs. That really is a misleading number. If you looked at what the vacancy rate is in Class A office buildings in Milton, I believe it would be very different from that. And so, and there are a lot of people, like I said, that live in Milton who don't get the opportunity to work in Milton just because there's no Class A office buildings that there are vacancy in that they could work in. So I really believe that we can't take our prime piece of property we have left and make it into something just because we're afraid that the market wouldn't support anything else right now. We really just need to wait. And rather than having it go into something that will cost us $250,000 to $500,000 a year, it's better just to wait till it fulfills the need that we really need it to fill, which is to have more of the work space in the city of Milton.
Okay, I don't know if there's a joke, you want to go ahead and then.
Oh, well, I was just going to make a follow-up comment to what Matt said earlier. Obviously, it's not an easy thing to sit there, Matt, and talk about how, you want to see something happen that nobody sitting in the audience is, standing up and cheering for. Sure. So there's nothing easy about sitting here and weighing the balance between, what if we say yes to this, what if we say no to this? So I appreciate you putting a lot of thought into that and thinking about what the real issue is there. And, I have no doubt, regardless of how this vote goes, that the people that occupy this property aren't going to receive services from the city. We're going to provide the services that are required. We're going to do everything that we're supposed to do as a city. So that's not really an issue, but there is an opportunity cost associated with this. And the opportunity cost is in a couple of different areas. The first area is if it's residential, it's not commercial. There's an opportunity cost there that trickles back to all kinds of things, the least of which is the $7 million number, which I would agree with Joe. It's startling when you look at it. I have a hard time believing it, but I also don't think it just got plucked out of thin air. So there's something to it there. The other opportunity cost is because the city, for the most part, is on a fairly inflexible budget. We just can't go out and generate money anytime we want to. There's an opportunity cost in terms of the rest of the citizens, because in order to provide the service that we need to citywide, we take from certain areas. Citizens aren't going to be able to get certain services that maybe they expect or would have grown to come to expect if we're spending our resources elsewhere. So appreciate your comments, Matt, and I would agree with what you had to say, and Karen as well. Thanks.
Okay, I think I've heard the council clear and loud, and I think any more conversation is more to justify each person's position versus I don't know that it's going to change anybody else's. So with that being said, if there's no other comments, if somebody wants to make a motion in a second for an action.
Mayor, I'll make a motion. no one else seems to want to. I'd like to make a motion for rezoning Z 12-06 and VC 12-03 that we deny the applicant's request based on the fact that it is, I don't believe that it is it is not what we need as far as the live, work, play. It does not provide the work aspect that we need. The fact that the feasibility study, it could be detrimental to the residents, and the fact that it could, based on the information provided by the school board, that it could put a burden on our schools. And I think that probably is the three reasons.
Okay, does staff need to clarify or restate those reasons along with the motion for denial? I've got them.
I've got them, and what I don't have, I can pull off the recording.
Okay. I have a motion for denial.
I'll second.
Councilmember Thurman, and a second from Councilmember Kuntz. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question. We only have 6 members here tonight. What's the result of?
If it's a tie,
Mhm.
then it fails due to being a tie. Then we'd have to bring up for another motion.
Again, this is trying to stay within the point of order. I know we have a motion on the table. Would it be appropriate, again, to ask the applicant if we deferred it and if they would be willing to redesign basically the entire concept and come back to us with something that may be more agreeable, that's more in line with what the LCI recommended on the what we approved. Again, instead of just turning it down.
There's already a motion and a second, is it?
Well,
I understand.
At this point, protocol would be there's a motion and a second for denial. Unless that motion maker in a second would like to withdraw it, then we need to vote on that. And again, if it were a tie, then it would fail. And that, could also always be another motion that was brought up, if the applicant was, if the first motion failed. So you do have that option. So, any other comments?
Mr. Mayor, before you call for a vote, I'm just going to ask, as a matter of protocol, if you'd be willing to withdraw the second, to withdraw the motion, simply make a motion to deny with no further information than that.
With no further information, I will be happy to.
If the second would be removed, and then withdraw your motion and make a new motion in its place, and the motion is simply a motion to deny.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to withdraw my second.
And I'll withdraw my motion, and I'll make a motion to deny. Do I need to restate it, or?
Just the agenda number, just the ZA number.
The RZ 12-06 and VC 12-03.
It's fine.
Okay, second. I
Thank
have a
you.
motion by Councilmember Thurman, a second by Councilmember Kuntz for denial. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye and raise your right hand.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Mr. Mayor, pursuant to Section 17 of the Milton Rules, passage of a motion shall require the affirmative vote of a majority of those voting. Therefore, that motion fails.
Okay. There was a second. Kuntz. Okay.
The matter remains pending.
We can open up for another motion. If somebody has a different motion, give that one a shot. Or we'd have
I don't understand.
I have a motion for approval, and could vote on that, or we could have a motion for deferral.
Well,
and until
I'll make a motion.
Until at some point
For that.
we break a tie. Okay, you're welcome to make a motion.
I make a motion that we defer the application. And in the meantime, during the deferral, that the city, again, with the city architect and others with the city, work with the developer who owns this property to try to work out a concept that's more mixed use, and commercial, and residential, has the walkability, has the aspects that we're all looking for, connection to Highway 9. I even, again, I realize it's a motion, but have the time to even consider things. One thought that I had was even a hotel piece, a portion of this property being designated as a pad for a hotel, which we all know is, I know it's a long motion, I'm sorry.
Motions are long in Virginia.
Okay. Yes, they are.
Councilmember, if we could, just get it down to a motion to defer.
I just motioned that we
and
defer
not-
to work with the developer.
I need a date certain. I either need September the 17th or October the 15th.
Let's see here, September 15th would be a
September the
month.
17th or October the 15th.
I'd say we could probably do something by September.
So your motion would be to defer until September the 17th?
He's going to redo the whole site plan in a month.
Well, they don't have to redo the whole site plan. It's the concept, basically.
I'll second that, but only because I've got some other questions, so we can discuss it.
Okay.
That's what we need, don't we? Second.
Okay, did you say a date, September 17th? I have a motion to defer until September 17th by Councilmember Large. I have a second by Councilmember Hewitt. Now I'll open up for discussion. Go ahead.
And perhaps a question, does the applicant have any interest in that?
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. The
I mean,
applicant may not have any
and we'll see.
in the deferral.
We did study the mixed-use concept. There's several problems. It's not viable today. The commercial piece isn't viable today. The residential piece is, obviously. The site itself, the linear nature of the site and the topo of the site makes it also very challenging for mixed use. Mixed use can mean a lot of things for a lot of people. Most truly mixed use sites where you see residential, office, and retail are on a much larger scale, larger acreage than this. To make truly mixed use sites, to force that into just 21 acres, I honestly believe you'll never see that. It won't happen, it can't happen. And it certainly, to me, it would destroy the integrity of the site plan and the opportunity that we come up with. So we appreciate the motion sincerely, but I think we would rather stay with what we've got for those reasons. Again, they're not viable today. This is viable today, and the site won't lend itself to mixed use. It's mixed use by virtue of the fact that you've got office and retail that are walkable to the site. It completes the Deerfield mixed use component. There's other residential units walkable within Deerfield, but nothing like this, and this is what the market's like.
Thank you. And that being said, I would only support a deferral if the applicant wished for a deferral, but is that the case? Would the applicant prefer not to have a deferral?
Correct.
Okay. All right.
Well, we have a motion and a second unless somebody withdraws a second.
Yeah, we can.
I'm
we
fine
can
to withdraw the second.
We can vote on it.
Either one's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, withdrawing the second obviously dispenses with the need for voting on it.
Okay. If you want.
If I withdraw the motion, can I replace it with another motion?
And I'll withdraw my second.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me get my papers out here.
So for the purpose of keeping score here, you withdrew your second, so that motion is going to fail for lack of a second, right? I haven't heard you say you have withdrawn your motion.
I'm withdrawing my motion.
He did.
So you withdrew your motion. Okay, so now the floor is with no motions.
Okay. Then the only other thing I have would be that I move that we approve the agenda item RZ 12-06/VC 12-03 as submitted by the applicant.
Okay. Second.
I'll second that, but only because I got a couple of questions. I'm sorry. That's the only way to move this forward.
Okay.
Well, I mean, just to move it forward. All right, because we had.
Okay, I've got a motion by Councilmember Large for approval and a second by Councilmember Hewitt. Now, discussion.
All right, we had some staff recommended conditions, and which were different at least on at least one thing versus what they've submitted here. So do you want to go with staff recommended conditions or modified staff recommended conditions or on this site plan that they gave us right here?
No, I'm fine going with staff, modified staff recommendations, especially like maybe the circulation, the right in, right out.
Deleting that? Okay, so how can we amend that motion then
We
procedurally?
You need to withdraw your second and restate the motion.
Okay, so now I withdraw my motion.
And
We'll
redo my
restate
second.
Another,
You'll restate your motion.
okay?
Your intent.
I move to approve the zoning agenda item RZ 12-06/VC 12-03, the conditions that they worked with, the staff recommendations, but eliminate the right in, right out.
Is that it? I'll second that.
Okay, does, Chris, do you have that
I am
motion?
not clear. No.
Okay.
And
All right,
you know,
just-
on the off chance that this would pass, which I'm not thinking that it will, we do need to make sure that the motion at least captures what the
Could I
intent is.
interject here?
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think what we're wanting to say is in condition, so staff recommended condition 4B2. It states in the staff recommended conditions to provide 2 full access drives and 1 right-in, right-out access on Deerfield. And I believe what Councilperson Large is saying is provide 2 full access drives, period. And delete the portion that says, and 1 right-in and 1 right-out access on Deerfield Parkway.
Is that,
Yes.
does that capture your intent?
Yeah, it captures the
Okay,
essence.
so staff recommended conditions with the removal of 4B2 after the word drives.
And that's what I intend to second.
That I've captured.
Okay. All right, and I just have one more, Mr. City Attorney, just to clarify. We had a motion for denial, and that failed due to a lack of majority. We've got a motion to approve. What happens if that fails for a majority also?
If it's a tie vote, that means that the substantive motion is defeated per your rules, and therefore I would ask, someone has got to make a motion to postpone this to the next available date when the tie can be broken, when you have a full component of the council here.
Okay.
That has to occur, because this matter remains pending until that time.
Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And as it were, that I need, unless, and again, I don't want to get in the way, if there are other motions.
Yeah.
The next regular meeting. Unless there are any more substantive motions, either to deny or to.
If there's any, I'll
I thought I didn't think you had to make a motion to defer it. I thought it automatically would carry it over.
Yeah, our rules don't expressly say that.
According to Robert's Rules of Order,
That's
yeah.
right. But it just, to me, it's cleaner just to go ahead and have that motion, because that's what's going
I'd
to
rather
happen.
do it that way.
It's still open to any motion, different than what's already been made, or if you want to defer it to the next meeting.
Yeah, I move that we defer this to the September 17th meeting so that the full membership of the council.
Before you go forward, the motion's going to be to postpone, and it's going to be to the September 5th meeting.
Oh, okay. I thought we had to have it on the second meeting of the
The
month.
next available time that a quorum is present, the tie is going to be broken. So it'll be the motion
I
will be.
didn't say postpone? I said something?
You said defer.
He said defer.
Oh, sorry.
And this is just a different motion, but it's
Okay.
postponed to September the 5th.
Can you just write that down so I can read it back to you? No.
Wait,
All
before
right.
you make that, can I ask a point of order, maybe?
Point of order.
My first point of order.
Point of order. Bert has one.
We have a special call meeting on the 27th. It's 7 days.
I'm not going to be
Okay,
there.
then
I'm not going to be there. I'll save you guys that trouble. So.
Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Mayor, I move that we postpone this vote until the next full council meeting, which is September the 5th, so that we can vote again.
I'll second that.
Okay, have a motion to postpone till September what was that? Fifth. By Councilmember Longoria, a second by Councilmember Hewitt. In discussion, however, more question for our city attorney. At this point, this application's neither been approved or denied.
Correct.
Would the applicant have the option of withdrawing the application before that meeting? And I want to say that they may not want to come back and get denied or approved, you know. It's up there.
I think that would be within their discretion. I would have to check your rules to see if it's too late to do a denial or a withdrawal without prejudice, but otherwise they would always have the right to withdraw it.
Okay. Okay, any other discussion? Hearing none, I guess, basically, whether you vote on this motion second or not, it's the same outcome, correct? It gets pushed to our next meeting where there's a quorum.
That's correct.
So we're not really making a decision, we're just clarifying it. Okay.
This is a procedural device.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, will the city clerk please sound the next zoning agenda?
Our next item is RZ 1211 to amend Article 16, signs, as it relates to moving signs and replacing the current name Crabapple Crossroads Overlay District signs to Crabapple Form-Based Code Overlay District signs. Agenda item number 12189. First presentation was at the August 6th regular council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, this text amendment proposes two things. The first is to prohibit moving signs that are held by people. Currently, the definition of signs does not include signs held by people. Therefore, the definition has been amended to reflect the situation. In addition, within Section 64-2295, signs held by a person except during demonstrations, assemblies, and public gatherings have been added to prohibited signs. The Planning Commission recommended to include signs worn by a person or animal and to include costumes to be prohibited. That's the first change to this amendment. The other change to this text amendment is to replace the existing title of the Crabapple Crossroads Overlay District signs with Crabapple Form-Based Code signs. Staff has also deleted the previous overlay district map with the new one that reflects the geographic area of the Crabapple Form-Based Code. So this second part essentially is housekeeping issue. And the Planning Commission recommended that overlay district be included in the new title to read Crabapple Form-Based Code Overlay District signs. This text amendment was reviewed at the work session last week and is here for your review.
Okay, any questions on this? Bert?
Does Title 16, I guess it is, does it include both of these? Because as we talked at the work session that we might want to take out the portion of the moving signs. If we were to make a motion, would it be appropriate to say to still amend Title 16, but only for replacing the current name Crabapple Crossroads Overlay District signs to Crabapple Form-Based Code Overlay District signs?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you, Kathy. We'll ask those speaking in support of this.
We do not have any public comment cards, either
Okay.
opposed or support.
And the public hearing is now closed. Is there any more discussion or questions for Kathy? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I would like to make a motion to approve Agenda Item 12189, RZ 12-11, to amend Article 16 to replace the current name Crabapple Crossroads Overlay District signs to Crabapple Form-Based Code Overlay District signs.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilmember Hewitt, second by Councilmember Large. Is there any discussion on this motion? Second.
Just to be real clear, we took the moving sign piece out of it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That was.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, will the city clerk please stay on the next item?
Next item is RZ 1212, to amend Section 64-2371 to create permit expiration standards for land disturbing activities. Agenda item number 12190. First presentation was at our August 6th regular council meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Currently, the zoning ordinance does not provide a mechanism for the extension and expiration of land disturbance permits. This proposed text amendment will provide the tool to the community development staff to extend the permit if necessary to be completed. The Planning Commission recommended approval with some minor changes to the wording of the text amendment, but without changing the intent. Therefore, we would establish Section 64-2371 entitled Permit Expiration for Land Disturbing Activities, which would read as follows. Permits for land disturbing activities shall be valid for 2 years. Work must begin within 180 days of issuance of the permit, or the permit shall expire. Permits for projects which have achieved substantial completion may be extended at the discretion of the Director of Community Development, not to exceed 1 additional year from the expiration date of the permit, provided that the permit holder issues a performance bond equal to 125% of the estimated cost of completion of the project. That is the proposed text amendment, Mr. Mayor.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, do we have any public comment on this item?
We do not.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing. Any questions or comments for staff? If not, do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve RZ 12-12 to amend Section 64-2371 to create permit expiration standards for land disturbing activities, agenda item number 12-190.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion for approval from Councilmember Thurman, second by Councilmember Kuntz. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, let's move on to unfinished business. Will City Clerk please call the item?
Our last item of the evening is HD 1201, approval of an ordinance for historic designation of the property located at 12560 Hopewell Road, the Hardman Store. Agenda item number 12191, joint public hearing held July 16th. First presentation was at our August 6th regular meeting. Ms. Kathy Field.
Thank you. Turn it off. Okay. This is just a little background history. As you know, we're here tonight to consider the historic designation of a property. In order to get to this point, and this is sort of a watershed evening, as it's our first historic designation by you as a city council, and hopefully in the future, I know there will be many more historic properties coming through for designation as well. But as you know, we first the city first appointed an HPC, and then the HPC ordinance was approved, the District ordinance was approved, HPC design guidelines were approved, and then the first designation application was received. That was reviewed by the state of Georgia DNR, and then in July of 2012, as per the HPC ordinance, there was a joint meeting between the HPC and the City Council, and the HPC at that time recommended designation. So that takes us to the Hardman Store. This is the first application for historic designation of a structure presented to the Milton City Council. The Milton Country Store, former Hardman's Groceries, is located at 15260 Hopewell Road. And this is a site plan showing the location of the Hardman Store at the intersection of Hopewell and Thompson. The site contains it's a total parcel size of 0.634, which includes the house. This section that just includes the Hardman Store, the size of that is 0.524. The existing zoning is AG1 agriculture. Surrounding zoning is AG1 single-family residential use. The site is located within the Northwest Fulton Overlay District. The site includes vacant store building and a ranch house. The applicant requests that the store, not the house, just the store, be designated as historic per Article 18, Historic Preservation Commission ordinance. History of the site. The original structure was built in the early 50s. It's wood frame with wood collaborative construction. Sits on a stone pier foundation. It was used as a country general store and fueling station. Store was renovated in 2006-2007. A metal roof and porch was added. Replacement materials and porch materials sourced from old barns and other period structures. The proprietor's home, a 1,834 square foot ranch house, is located in the same tract. The contributing and non-contributing elements. The contributing elements, the original store structure. Non-contributing elements include the porch addition and the metal roof. Statement of significance. The City of Milton Historic Preservation Ordinance offers several reasons why a site may be deemed worthy of preservation. One, it possesses an outstanding example of structures representative of its area. The subject 1,200 square foot structure is similar in shape, construction, style, and setback to the typical Crossroads country store. Next, it is the site of a natural, archaeological, or aesthetic interest that contributes to the cultural or historical development and heritage of the municipality, county, state, or region. A typical country store such as Hardeman's would be located on a main travel supply route. Such stores sold a variety of items including food staples, hardware, farming, supplies, and fuel. They also served as a gathering place for the community. And here we see pictures of the subject site. There's the front of it. It's a close-up of the front door. There's the rear. Another rear. Side. In conclusion, the ordinance for designation of the Hardman store as historic has been recommended for approval by the State of Georgia DNR and the City of Milton Historic Preservation Commission. It is recommended that the City of Milton Mayor and City Council approve HD 12-01 designating the Hardman store as historic per Article 18 of the zoning ordinance. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Field on this? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I've got a letter from Councilman Lusk. He asked to be read into the record. Are you okay with that?
I am okay with that.
This is from Councilman Lusk. It's titled HD 1201, Approval of an Ordinance for Historic Designation of the Property Located at 12560 Hopewell Road, the Hardeman Store. I'd like to have my comments read into the record at the regular council meeting on 20 August 2012 regarding this item. Number one, the structure has met the criteria established by the Historic Preservation Commission and approved by them during our joint meeting last month. Number two, the structure represents an era which is the basis of our vision and mission statements, preserving our rural character. 3, other similar store structures are located in our city, but few remain. 4, some would argue that this structure is not historic. The mere age alone makes it qualify. As each day passes, more structures reach that criteria. Even the brick ranch houses that are scattered around Milton now meet it. In another 20 to 30 years, the McMansions, which now predominate the landscape, will be classified as historic. Number 5, just as the Cotton Gin and the Statham Store and Crabapple, Bice's Store in Birmingham Crossroads, and Haygood Store in Bethany, the four-board fences, barns, and old general stores brand us too as the rural community for which we have become known. Number 6, I support and recommend that we pass this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or Bert?
Kathy, could you just kind of in a nutshell remind us of what, if we approve this, what that historic designation does to that structure?
The historic designation means that in the future, if there are any changes to it, the owner would have to go to the HPC to obtain a certificate of appropriateness. So in a sense, it puts it on a registry, so to speak, and protects it from any future changes to the outside exterior. In addition, because you have an H district, they could also come in under the H district rezoning, which is a whole different application process. But right now, it is essentially lists this as an official historic structure.
And how about uses? What does it do to the approved uses under?
Well, right now it's zoned AG1,
Okay.
and it's basically the only thing this approval is requesting tonight is to designate it as an historic structure, so it will be protected in terms of any exterior changes to it.
And it would make it eligible to come in for the H zoning.
Yes, if indeed there was, the owner felt that he wanted to
If it does
pursue that.
come-
But that's separate from what tonight's,
But if it does come in under H zoning, what would the uses be then?
it would be back to, Robin, you can help me with this, but back to the original general store use is my understanding.
Yes, yeah. Under the H district, it would have to be whatever the prior use had been.
And as far as, you listed the contributory, non-contributory, a couple of non-contributory things is the front porch and the metal roof. Does that, I mean, can we say that it needs to go back to what it was? Condition this in any way like that, or is it all or none?
Well, if they want to make any changes, right now it's grandfathered in with what is there. But if
Okay.
they came in with any changes, it would be up to the HPC in terms, because they're going to act sort of like the DRB.
DRB for that, yeah. Gotcha.
That's
Okay.
exactly what, their role, they'll be doing DRB type work for historic structures.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Talking with a couple of citizens around and and looking at some history of other cities with historical preservation designations. Sometimes, maybe not now, but maybe 30 years from now, there can be problems with that designation as far as use of the land and things like that. Is there ever some kind of a sunset clause you can put on something like this? I don't know legally. It's just a question I was throwing out there as to whether or not you can make it historical for a while and then have a council or something review it at X amount of time. Just curious. I didn't know.
Well, if someone wanted to redevelop an historic property, of course, the idea is to try and protect the historic
Right,
properties
it's not
by
less historical
designating
30
this.
years from now, I understand that. But
And if 30 years from now, if someone should come in and want to combine this property with another one, for instance, with another type of development, they would have to go to the HPC to get a demolition permit from them. Now, of course, that's always appealable up the chain as well, but that would be the process.
Karen?
I know there's been a lot of discussion as far as the fact that the front porch may not have been what was there. But if you look at any, or most historical structures, they were added onto over a period of time. I mean, the old Rucker house had the kitchen outside, and then, it was added onto, and the Hopewell house, it was built at 4 or 5 different time periods. So it really doesn't bother me that a porch was added on to the house, because the porch is something that would fit in with what you would do 50 years ago if you were adding on to a house. So like I said, I don't think that really, the non-contributing porch really doesn't bother me, because that would have been something that could have easily been added 45 years ago rather than 10 years ago.
Anybody else? Okay. Do I have any motions?
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve HD 12-01, approval of an ordinance for historic designation of the property located at 12560 Hopewell Road, the Hardeman Store. Agenda item number 12-191.
Second that.
I said it first.
No, you didn't. I have a motion from Councilmember Thurman, second by Councilmember Longoria.
I get no respect.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay, we don't have any new business, so move on. Does anybody have any reports on the council side?
I've got
Bert?
a couple of things.
Sure.
2 things. One, tailing into the historic designation and all that. We, when we passed the historic preservation ordinance, or when it was passed a couple of months ago, or whenever it was, we were expecting some comments on some other possible revisions to it, maybe from the state. Am I thinking clearly or not?
You are.
Yes.
Have we were hoping for them within about 30 days. I know what we're dealing with another department, but have we had any feedback on that?
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. We did take the comments that the City Council made back to the state, and we revised the HPC ordinance and sent it back to the state for their review. They did have their legal department review it, and basically they said that if we were to make those changes, they would not be able to give their approval to the ordinance.
Okay. Thank you.
We tried.
All right, I got one other thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had heard from a resident, and he was representing a few other residents, about an ordinance that was passed a couple of months ago about fences in front yards. Basically, I think the ordinance says if it's visible, and Robin, correct me if I'm wrong because we chatted about it, but if it's visible from a right-of-way, public right-of-way, in the front yard, it has to be a 4-board fence. Is that in a nutshell?
Right, and it's zoned AG1.
It's zoned in AG1. And we have several neighborhoods that are zoned AG1 that a 4-board fence may not fit architecturally. They may have a different type of fence already in the backyard. They may want to bring it to the front. And I don't know if that's, I wasn't at that meeting, but I don't know if that was our intent to regulate it that much. So if it's in the interest of the council, I would like to at least in the near future open that back up and maybe look at it a little closer. I don't think it's our, I know what we were trying to do and intending to do, but I don't know if that's that pinpoint of regulation is something we want to be in the business of. So if that's something that my fellow council members would be willing to perhaps look at with us, I would appreciate it. And I know the residents would too.
I would support looking at that too, looking at those options, because there are, there probably are cases, or I'm sure there are cases that 4-board fence may not be appropriate in some of our neighborhoods. Yeah. So
I think sometimes a one-size-fits-all doesn't work.
And maybe as simple as giving some guidelines to, giving staff some flexibility, voting to, at some point to give staff flexibility based on a certain neighborhood and covenants or whatever. But I certainly would support, and it sounds like everybody else would at least looking at that option. Maybe you staff.
Let's give us this. We'll look at it in the next 60 days. We'll bring it to work session. We'll bring it.
Okay. And the other thing, some of you guys, I'm sure probably also have heard some people contact us about lack of sidewalks for the new school, at the new school. So just, certainly wanted to throw that out there. I know that's a tough situation. We've not only got the burden of traffic improvements and whatnot that we've all done, spent a lot of money, and now all of a sudden you do that and make that all nice and the school's open, and it shows, it opens up a new thing that we need to spend some money on. So again, I'm just bringing it up. It's a concern. I don't know what we can do about it. I know Carter's going to look into it, but I just wanted to.
We've looked into it. We've priced it. We can bring some information back.
Do we have anything in our sidewalk replacement
There's a little
fund?
bit there, not for the distance that's needed. I asked about Safe Routes to School grant as well in response to some of those questions that we've received. And that's fine if we're willing to wait several years to get them, but I don't know that that's a good solution either. So a local fund project might be the one that gives us the most impact in the short term. We can look at that as we go through this budget process. I'm seeing a lot of heads shake that's important to you.
Yes, it is.
In addition to that, Joe's talking about, I recently had the Bethany Bend neighborhood group. I met with them, actually had a meeting here at the city with Carter and Sarah regarding some of their concerns, mostly public works concerns. And one of the things that they brought up was the one crosswalk at the intersection of Bethany Bend and Highway 9. It's the one that comes across from the side that the gas station's on to the Starbucks side. That side would be the south side of the intersection. It's very unsafe because it's such a long distance between where the people make a right turn on red. And Carter and Sarah we decided maybe the best thing would be to eliminate that crosswalk altogether, to force crossing over there. I would like that to be followed up on.
The place we need to be on that is we need to let the state do what the state's going to do, and not assume the liability for what might be determined to be an unsafe crosswalk. But we will certainly pass the concerns along to the state, but we need to rely upon them to solve it in the manner in which they feel is appropriate.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Okay. I'll turn it over to Chris. Do you have any
Yeah,
reports?
just a couple of bits of good news today. We spent a lot of time in budget, but good news for the police department, good news for the fire department today. Announcing in the police department that the Milton Public Safety Foundation is going to fund a grant in excess of $3 million, or $3 million, I wish, $3,000 to advance the training program. You know, it's just zeros. It's just commas and zeros.
Usually a zero will fix almost any problem.
And the second, so good news in the police department today, good news in the fire department today. I got an email from the fire chief, another stellar year in the Milton citizens giving towards the boot drive campaign. And our citizens and people that passed through Milton this year parted with $65,620 to give to muscular dystrophy, which is almost $5,000 more than we were able to raise last year, and our strongest amount yet. So good job for those guys that were out there with the boots, and then also the people that found fit to reach into their pockets and put $1 in the boot. So thanks to both of those folks. Mayor, the city attorney and I will need you after the meeting, so don't run off.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion to move into executive session to discuss land acquisition?
I so move.
Second. Okay, I've got a motion and a second to move into executive session for discuss land acquisition. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's unanimous.
motion to reconvene.
Second.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion, and a second. We adjourn this meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.